648, it's Hot Talk 99.5, the Hot Talk Morning Show, along with Dave and Liz, Dave Priest, Liz Calloway. Obviously, one of the big stories that a lot of people have been talking about is Cecil the lion. Anytime you have a lion that has a name, number one, and number two, it's named Cecil, you know it's not going to be a big, ferocious lion that's going to have to worry about villagers and you know, killing randomly and stuff like that. It's one of the most beloved lions in Africa. You know the story. The guy lured it out along with the help of a couple of people. And now Cecil the lion is dead, and a lot of people are up in arms about it. Walter Palmer is the guy who shot and killed the lion. We figured we'd go ahead and call Robert Johnson. Rob Johnson is not with the Lions Preserve, but with the Tigers Preserve. But we feel that Big Cats is his purview. So we appreciate Robbie coming in today.
Good morning, guys. Great to be here again. This is quite the story that's come out, isn't it?
Yeah, it is. And also, I was just happened to look up, and I just found out that yesterday was International Tiger Day.
It was, in fact, International Tiger Day.
I'm sure that you knew that, but I didn't know that.
Yeah, we knew it very well, and we actually do a great big conservation effort every International Tiger Day. So we sent some major funding yesterday to Corbett National Park in India, which we work with very closely to help conserve the wild tiger population there.
When I was looking at the website for International Tiger Day, it's just depressing is what it is. I mean, it was just showing the numbers and just the only numbers you need to see. 1913, essentially 100 years ago, the number of tigers in the wild was 100,000. 2015, the numbers of tigers in the wild, 3,000.
Yeah, less than 3,000.
3,000. So it went from 100,000 to 3,000.
Now, why is that?
In 100 years.
Mainly because of hunting, because of poaching, because of human population just taking over their territories. 250 years ago, there was 500,000. So, I mean, literally, we have gone through more than a 99% reduction in the species. So it's just...
Now, why do people kill tigers? Just
tigers,
for the trophy?
It has been, yes, certainly. It's been the sport of kings to go out hunting tigers in the wild, but also for the very real purpose of staying alive, keeping your family alive. There was actually Jim Corbett, the guy that was the founder of India's first national park, helping to save all these tigers, was really known as a great tiger hunter. And that's how he spent a lot of his earlier days. And the first lion he killed, first tiger he killed, that one tiger is documented in 436 humans that one tiger killed.
Oh, wow.
So
he was like a hero, in effect.
He was a hero, absolutely. In his later days, he realized that obviously not all tigers are this way, and understood the importance of helping to conserve their habitat.
And that's what, when there's a story like this that just blows out of control, and this Dr. Walter Palmer is now the most hated man in the world.
I would not want to be him
internet.
today.
Yeah, no. Do you feel that a lot of information is lost, like fact is lost in this when it comes to conservation efforts? Do you think it takes a life of its own and people misunderstand?
I think that absolutely. I think people are immediately ready to jump on the bandwagon and condemn someone. I followed the story very closely, and there are a whole lot of questions that are out there that may not be being answered. Like you mentioned, that the lion was baited and he came over. But I'm not sure exactly. It's a common practice in Zimbabwe. It's one of the very few places that is still legal to hunt lions. But it's very difficult to try and bait a single animal, get it to come from, 15 miles away onto your property.
Well, they said they dragged a dead animal on the back of their truck to try and attract this lion. Now, this lion had a collar with a GPS on it.
Right.
So it was obviously it belonged to this preserve, and they were tracking it and all that. So is it possible that they baited and lured the wrong lion by mistake?
From what I've read, this place had a quota. It didn't have a quota for shooting lions. It had a quota for shooting leopards. And that they were trying to bait a leopard onto the property to be able to shoot it. This lion got a whiff of it and came in, and they shot the lion. Obviously, there wasn't a quota for it, but unfortunately, you have that very dishonest practice of them shooting at one place and claiming it was shot somewhere else.
Right.
He's been convicted of that before.
That exact same thing with the bear.
Right.
But I also believe that in Africa, a lot of times you have to hire a professional guide,
right,
and you are going by what your guide tells you to do.
Well, in this instance, I mean, the $50,000 that he paid went to private guides that were doing that. I mean, he just paid individuals to help him do this. In the other instances that we've heard about, like where the guy went to, paid $350,000 to shoot a rhino.
In Namibia, yeah.
Yeah, we know that the rhino was, a non-producing member of the herd and was just kind of taking up space, if you want to put it that way.
Yep.
That money actually goes to good because it actually goes to conservation processes, but this doesn't.
A small portion of it does, obviously not a whole lot, but there are permits that absolutely have to be bought through the government to do this. And Cecil the lion is unfortunately the exact opposite of what that rhino was. The rhino was actually keeping other males away. They couldn't populate. And the real big problem with hunting lions is that they always want to, of course, go kill the giant male lion because that's the big trophy. But unfortunately, that lion is the head of a pride of lions. And when he is gone, the next male lion comes in and moves in. And the first thing that lion has to do to establish his territory is kill all that previous male's cubs.
Right.
So the females come back into estrus and start reproducing. So the killing of one lion could equal the killing of 25 lions ultimately, as there's a struggle for the pride.
Robert, why do you think there's such world outrage over this lion? I mean, we're talking, Dave and I are talking about other major issues. We're talking about the Planned Parenthood videos. We're talking about, another man that was shot dead by a cop and,
in
someone.
Cincinnati, yeah.
Yeah. We're talking about major issues that involve human beings. Why is it that this story has got so much attention worldwide?
It is something that that people are definitely empathizing with, but it is something that has become very culturally prominent right now. And this is a fairly recent thing. 40, 50 years ago, big game hunting was, something that was sought after. Some of our biggest heroes, Ernest Hemingway, was a giant hunter.
Teddy Roosevelt.
Yeah. Great big hunter, but it is something that has become culturally, politically incorrect to do. So people are just ready to jump on that bandwagon.
It's almost like everything that you were trying, not you, but people like you were trying to do is to get people to recognize the killing of animals in a sense that in the wrong way that it's being done, as opposed to the right or appropriate way. It's almost like it's backfired. Because it's given, Dave was talking about the person paying $350,000 in the name of conservation. That was even being looked
attacked,
at.
Yeah,
being attacked by people. So how now do you try and balance that in the public? It seems
it is very difficult because, of course, people become very emotional about something like this. That's the whole thing. But we do have to find a balanced position. In a lot of ways, people just look at wildlife as a resource. Shooting a lion is like shooting a bear, is like shooting a deer, is like shooting a rabbit. But the big problem that we're facing is that the lions and the elephants and the rhinos and all of this sought after big game, we only have a few thousand of them left in the wild, which is what really needs to be looked at and controlled. Lions are on the IUCN red list as threatened species, but it is still legally allowed to be able to hunt them and import the trophies into the U.S. As long as you have a CITES permit, you have all the correct paperwork, you can import that trophy. So what really needs to happen is that these animals need more protection. They need to be with, there's about 30,000 lions, which is, seems like quite a few, but that, over a large continent, that is just a handful of animals. And so protecting them has got to be the first step into helping save them.
We only got about a little bit more than a minute left. How are things going over at Myrtle Beach Safari? It's been a long, hot summer. Things been
it has
been
been a
over
hot
there.
summer. It's been a fantastic summer, actually. The people are always asking how the animals fare, but a tiger's from India where it's 110 in the shade, so they're out there loving it. It's all of our guests, all of our tourists that are melting under the hot sun. Animals are faring just great, though.
If you want to get more information, go to myrtlebeachsafari.com. We thought of you immediately when we saw this story about Cecil the lion, and it's a shame, but like Liz says, it's just captured the imagination of everybody, because I think that you've gotten to the point where you see these magnificent animals and you're like, why? Why are people killing?
Why indeed?
All right. Again, go to myrtlebeachsafari.com, the Tigers Preserve. You can also go up to Barefoot Landing. You've got your animals out there on a daily
Tigers
basis.
Preservation Station. This time of year, we're open from 6 to 8 p.m., so they can visit the tigers there.
And your tours at Myrtle Beach Safari, when are those?
Those are by reservation only, and they can find out about that by going to Preservation Station or, again, visiting myrtlebeachsafari.com.
All right.
Rob
Thanks,
Johnson,
Robert.
thanks so much for all you do, obviously, and thanks for coming in this morning.
Thank you. Thanks, Dave. Thanks, Liz.
Thank you.
All right, it's coming up on 7 o'clock. It is going to be hot again today. 90 on the beaches, 95 inland, but the Tigers love it. Heat index. .706, Hot Talk 99.5, Thursday morning, 30th of July, the penultimate day. I want to thank Rob Johnson from Myrtle Beach Safari for joining us bright and early this morning. Usually he's on a little bit later with us when he comes on, but he had like a morning tour this morning, and then I think he was going to be unavailable tomorrow. And since we wanted to talk about the Cecil the lion situation, now was the best time to do it.
You know what he said, and he said this before, that about conservation, that hunters actually contribute more to conservation
They
monetarily than all those people complaining about Mia Farrow, Ted Nugent, and everybody else.
Yeah.
Ted Nugent's actually on the side of the hunters, but all those people combined.
They do.
Because they're preserving it, for their sport. But someone was saying, I heard someone talking about it, and they were saying, isn't it amazing that one person can look at a magnificent animal like a lion, right? And just bask in its beauty, right? And yet another person can look at that and say, wow, I want to shoot it and kill it and put it on my wall.
Yeah.
It's like that different frame of mind that you may not agree with, the other side, but in some cases, hunting is necessary.
Well, it absolutely is. I mean, if you look at some of the smaller animals, deers and rabbits especially, you've got to control the population, because a lot of times it gets into a situation where natural predators aren't there. They get overpopulated. They start getting sickly because there's not enough food for that many animals. So you got to thin the herd. You just got to do that. But I remember you were talking about conservation.
Yeah.
I learned that first. The first time I really learned that is when I was working at a country station here in town about 25 years ago. And they said, hey, Dave, we've got a Ducks Unlimited, a banquet coming up. Do you want to MC this for us? I'm like, yeah, sure. That'd be great. So I went there, and they had, game. I really had never eaten, venison and some other stuff before.
Yeah.
So we had that. But I also learned at that time that, the main thing that Ducks Unlimited does is preserve wetlands. And, and through what they do with the preservation, yes, it does bring ducks so that the ducks can then be shot. But at the same time, they're preserving all the wetlands and the environments, and the ducks repopulate. You don't have to worry about the population of ducks and deer and rabbits like you do with lions and tigers and rhinos and stuff like that. Those populations are going to be wiped out. Maybe some of them
just by progress.
Within our lifetime. We might see the end of wild animals such as some of those big creatures.
Well, we've learned by going to Myrtle Beach Safari, and I'm not sure if they discussed this when you were there, but on the tour, they were saying that certain colors of tigers are already extinct.
Yeah.
And so they are actually breeding in such a way to bring back those recessive traits.
Yeah, I did see
tigers,
that. I do remember them mentioning that. That was amazing.
It's very interesting. So there are versions of certain animals that are already extinct or on the verge.
It's sad. And like I said, just looking at the website for yesterday was International Tiger Day, just coincidentally. And 100 years ago, there were 100,000 tigers in the wild. Now there's 3,000 or less than 3,000, as Rob said.
Unfathomable.
And, as Rob said a minute ago, he says, a couple hundred years ago, there were 250,000. There were, 250,000 in the wild. And now just because of habitats being crunched and hunting, et cetera, it's gone down to where you can count exactly how many tigers there are. So it's just really sad.
Yeah.
7:11 on Hot Talk 99.5.